Welcome, everybody, to the Legendarium Green Team. Today, we're doing the final installment of the Tawny Man trilogy, Fool's Fate. And with me today, I have the biggest super fan of the Fool, Kyptan.
Heyo.
And also with me, I have the biggest super fan of Web,
Yeah,
Sean.
let's go with that.
And I am your host, Yetti Beats, the biggest fan of people not having conversations for 10 plus years. So we did it, guys. This was a long journey. I apologize for Kip for making you wait so long to read in between books. I'm sure you'd have binged all three.
It's fine. It's fine. It's not healthy what I do with Hobb books if I'm left on my own.
I think it's better this way. You got to process one after another and kind of recuperate, have a strong drink.
I definitely appreciate that.
So we were just talking beforehand. Why don't we start by spoiler-free thoughts, but maybe also where you would place Tawny Man in the hierarchy of the realm of the Elderlings books. And we'll start with you, Kip, since you're the noob.
Okay. I will say that I had some minor spoilers for this series, which impacted my enjoyment of these books. They're very difficult spoilers to avoid, but even with that, I still thought this book was fantastic.
There we go.
Yeah. It's currently on the top of my list for Hobb books, but I don't know. Some of that might be recency bias. Some of that might be because these are my favorite characters. You win some, you lose some. But right now, this is like 9.5 out of 10 for me.
Holy moly!
The highest I would give a Hobb book.
Wow! So it's your highest Hobb book, and I'm assuming you enjoyed Tawny Man more than Live Ships.
No. Overall, no.
Oh, so just the single book was the highest, but as a whole, Live Ships still.
Live Ships is still a better trilogy in my opinion.
Golden Fool exists.
Golden Fool exists. It's lovely, but not a ton happens.
Yeah.
Ultimate second book. Yeah. What about you, Sean? Where does this rank, and how, in general, how did you like the finale for Tawny Man?
I mean, it's a 5-star book.
Amen.
Yeah, along with a lot of Hobb books. Fool's Errand is probably still my favorite Realm of the Elderling entry so far. Fool's Fate would slot in somewhere top 5. I mean, like, at least one live ship book would go over it. Maybe 2. Maybe even 3. So it's somewhere in the top 5. I'm not really sure. But yeah, it would go like Fool's Errand number 1, and then 2 through 5 are like the 3 live ship books and Fool's Fate.
So is I know this is spoiler free for this book, but it's not spoiler free for
No.
Fool's Errand. So is that number 1 because of Night Eyes for you?
I wouldn't say. I mean, it's a big reason. It's like one of the most emotional moments of the series as a whole. It was like super. I don't know. It was satisfying in a very sad way, cathartic. Like, it was a great moment. And like the whole book was leading up to it, and like it was a big, thematically concise story, and there's a lot of good in Fool's Errand.
Yeah,
That's just one of many things.
for sure. Yeah, I'm with you guys. This was a 5 out of 5 for me. I don't think this is spoilery, but Kip can yell at me if it is. But for me, I love this so much because it kind of pushes back on this idea that Hobb is such a depressing read, and I felt like this really shines a light on, if not a happy
This pushes
ending.
back on that?
I do.
Okay.
I do. Compared to other endings of her series, I guess Live Ships is kind of more bittersweet than sad or anything. But like Assassin's Quest, like you see where Fitz is at the end of that, it's just like, God, that's depressing with Molly and Burke. Where in this one, I know it's a divisive end, but I do still come away generally happy in a sense that, well, it's anyway. It doesn't. That's all spoiler stuff. But
I don't consider
felt
that a
happy.
spoiler because that was a personal opinion.
This could have been the last realm of the Elderling book, and it would have been fine.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm surprised it's not
Sure.
sometimes. But in my so for my view, I thought this actually pushes back that all Hobb does is write pain. I mean, there's definitely a lot in that, but in this book, there's a lot actually.
Yeah, there is. Yeah,
there's,
there is.
there's quite a bit, more ways than one. But I don't know. For me, what the tears I were crying were sometimes kind of happy tears, and happy's not even the right word, but just maybe proud or long awaited or things like that. But it wasn't pain, and I didn't feel bad about where personal stories were going for characters here.
Several things long awaited definitely happened, but like a lot of pain. There was a lot of pain.
Yeah, I guess there is. I'm sorry. We'll get to it. We'll get to
Okay.
it. I'll make my case.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but like I said, I think this was one of her strongest books. I think it's kind of unquestionable that she really almost puts it all together as a writer for me with this one. And there's a lot to kind of. I mean, she kind of had to wrap up 6 books worth of character development, and I think she did a pretty admirable job for the most part.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into this shindig. Let's do the best we can. We're going to break down the chapters a little bit. We're not going to do a full recap right now about the whole book, but we're going to start from the beginning and we're going to zoom down maybe 3-4 chapters at a time. And I think this episode we're going to split these into 2 and go to about chapter 20, 21, or 21, I think we agreed on. So let's do what we can and get to it. And to start, we are back in Buck. And essentially the things that happen is Fitz and Chade are trying to deceive the fool into not letting him go. Lord Golden is just gambling and spending everything because he knows he's about to die on this trip. What else? Fitz meets Swift and has to train him in the bow or the axe. And he finds how good he is in the bow. They, Dutiful and Thick talk of dreams with Tintaglia because now Tintaglia's in their dreams. And essentially just a lot of it is just Fitz talking with Webb, Swift, and kind of avoiding the fool for the most part, except for one important talk they have about Fool's inevitable death. Eventually, the fool touches Fitz and shakes him so badly with his skill touch, and that's when Fool and Chade argue about dragons, and they both have differing opinions. And so most of it is revolving around those characters. What do you guys think about the beginning of that? And essentially just, how about we start with the Fitz kind of deceiving Fool?
One of the coolest magical mechanisms in this whole book is the skill link between Fitz and the Fool, and how with one touch they can become one person. And the way that Fitz pulls back from that oneness in order to keep a secret from the Fool in order to try and save their life, it's a great setup.
Yeah. He doesn't want Fool to know him completely. Like that's what it does, right? They know each other completely. Yep. And Fitz is deathly afraid of that. Sean, what did you...
Yeah, he's only that trusting when he's openly dying.
He has no choice. It is probably so unconsciously being so. What do you think about the idea where the Fool and Chade are so opposed about the idea of dragons. Chade wants to kill the dragon because it's best for the crown and the marriage, where Fool obviously believes Fitz should save the dragons because dragons need to mate and populate the world again. And kind of what it does to Fitz being again torn between these two familial members.
Right. I mean, I think it's a really interesting main conflict because the realm of the Elderlings up till now as a whole has been about these two issues. When it comes to Fitz's journey, a lot of it has to do with him and his relationship with the crown. Um, and then you also get the other side of the story where live ships involved with bringing the dragons back. Fitz plays a part in that as well a bit in Assassin's Quest, and it's a main topic here. Uh, so it's interesting that Hobb. It almost seems like a meta moment where Hobb's like, all right, like this is a kind of a fork in the road of this. The series proper has dealt with these two things now. Like which will Fitz truly follow from here? And I think it's funny how like both Chade and the Fool, they're both like, oh yeah, you'll make the right decision, even though
Right.
they both want him to make opposite decisions, but they both think he'll make the right decision. Um,
At least
for-
Chade makes an argument.
True, yeah. The Fool just kind of has blind faith, but
Yep.
in general for this topic, it's one of the more compelling topics in the series, in my opinion. The whole concept of saving the dragons, bringing dragons back, because like the Fool mentions the mirroring of humanity, and like taming the arrogance of humanity, and kind of the humans do that with the dragons and vice versa. Um, like one of the first hints of that was in Live Ships, where you see Rain get food for Tintaglia, and she's like humbled a bit by that. Um, so we know that this world is better when dragons and humans are living together and working together. Um, so a lot of kind of my stress reading the book was like, please, Fitz, save the dragons. Focus on that. Like the Farseer line is important, but like that can be maintained while saving the dragons. So it was a effective kind of initial conflict to open up the book.
Fitz would be killed how many times without Tintaglia?
True.
Just floating off in the Skill River, mindless,
Yeah.
gone.
Wait, you think Tintaglia is the one that was putting them back together?
Some dragon, yeah.
No. I don't know the answer. I assumed it was an elderling, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if it's Tintaglia, but
I
it could be.
assumed it was a dragon.
It was a good. That's a good. Again, it's up to debate. People maybe are calling us idiots. Like you don't know who that is, but I didn't know.
No,
Am I allowed to bring up a line at the end of the book, or are we?
Yeah,
am I
yeah.
not?
You can jump. Yeah.
I mean, it's minor, but one character towards the end mentions how like one can like fully dive into like the skill and kind of like live there, or at least like their essence can live there, or
exist there.
exist there, right? That's
Yeah.
the better term. So we don't know what that looks like exactly, but I'd imagine whoever helps Fitz is existing there.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I would agree as well.
Definitely. But I do like your point about. I think Hobb. I don't want to get into Hobbs what she's really trying to write, but like the Pale Woman and just this idea like of humans trying to control nature, and I feel like that's kind of the essence of the. Again, not jumping to the Pale Woman, but wanting dragons to die and wanting humans to be the top food chain, so to speak. And I feel like Hobb is against that in general. Again, I don't want to read into her writing, but that's the theme I kind of got from that outlook.
I got the general theme that like if dragons die, this stops becoming a fantasy world and it slowly turns into a mechanical one.
and they don't want that. They want a fantasy world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or that's what we want.
So, what would be like? Who is fighting for nature over society or whatever
Well,
term you used.
Webb.
the fool. Yeah, the witted.
Mm-hmm. Was it okay?
I assume so. And then Fitz is kind of in the
Yep.
middle of that, though he doesn't. To him, it's not really.
It's like, I don't know what I want. I'm gonna not think about it for a while.
Put this off, and just like he puts everything off.
Yep.
And that, but also another great point, like you said, like that encapsulates what all these books have been about up to this point. It's either like live ships, it's about dragons being brought into the world, or we're talking about Fitz and how everyone wants him to do things, and he never does anything for himself. Like that was literally put into one conversation right there.
Yeah. Though it turned out that maybe the dragons and live ships didn't work out after all.
Mm-hmm.
Well, RAFO.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's essentially that. I guess again in those chapters, Hap Fitz meets Hap. I don't know how much we'll talk about that. He's back in with Svenja, doing terribly.
Ooh. Yeah, he learned nothing.
He literally is right back to where he was. But I did think that was a cool conversation because it showed like Fitz didn't lose his cool again, and he was a little more calm. And I don't know. I think he handled it better. They left amicably after that. So I mean,
It was better.
it was better, not perfect, but
Yeah.
it was better. And just I think the last big thing from that chapter or those chapters is clearly Webb is a more important figure in the story. He offers to help Swift if Swift asks him to, because Fitz wants him to take Swift under his wing, really to just tell him the wit's bad and to send him back home. That's not what Webb does. But also Webb tells Fitz that he knows he is Fitz, which really kind of seems to shake Fitz a little bit. He even runs to Chade to tell him, like, what do we do about this? And Webb offers to teach Fitz the ways in the wit, which is just the beginning of Fitz politely declining over and over again.
Webb had to break his own rules. Did you notice that?
In what way?
He offered to train Fitz like one more time than he said he would.
Oh, yeah, right. Like, I remember I wrote like one last time he offered to train him, and that was like chapter like 20 or 24. It was like, yeah, he kept going and going.
Fitz freaks out.
He was like, "Hey, you're pretty thick. I'm not sure you got it last time. I am offering to train you."
I would trust Webb with my life.
Oh
Like
my god.
at no moment did I not trust him reading this series.
Yeah. I was all in. I mean, over and over again, he just showed his value. I'm like, this dude is just.
I started looking forward to Webb dialogue.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like this elder who knows everything and always had the right thing to say.
Sam Elliott.
He was just so quietly reprimanding of Fitz the whole time. It was great.
He reminds me of like people who can like if they're mad or something, or like if they just know how to word it in a way that's not offensive, or disappointed. They don't do it like bluntly or anything. He just knows
I'm not mad. I just wish that I could help you.
Right. As we keep going, the next couple chapters, I do want to bring up this in general.
Can I circle back real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
So you said you think the Fool / Webb represent nature taking control of humans, or at least like nature over humans. You don't think that'd be more so like an equals, or like a equal relationship there?
It might be, but I guess I would word it. I should have worded it: nature taking its course, so to speak. Not trying to get in the mix to make your outcome be whatever it wants. I mean,
fair. Okay.
I think that makes more sense. I think that's what they wanted.
Which is probably like nature. Yeah, okay. Like that's what nature's goal is. So, you can kind of think of it both ways. Because like obviously, the pale woman, who we'll get to, represents humans over nature, taking control of nature.
Right.
So I was wondering if there was maybe a third branch of nature taking control of humans. But yeah, I think nature winning looks like just nature being uncompromised.
I think the Path of the Pale Woman actually had some like hinting of weapons of mass destruction.
Really?
Yeah.
It's interesting. I don't remember reading that, like reading into that, but I don't doubt it.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Oh, now I mean, I do kind of agree with that. The way they worded it, like she just seemed like unhinged to a point where, and like all, I don't know. We'll get to
Yeah.
it, but
We'll get there. Sorry.
no, it was good. Hey, feel free to jump around in little bits, and we can always come straight back to where we are. But because that was relevant. Like, I mean, she really is the encapsulation of that point. But the next scene I wanted to talk about was the next chapter. Dutiful and Fitz meet each other and swap swords, which I thought was really poignant. Where Dutiful gives Fitz Chivalry's blade, and Fitz gives him Verity's blade. And obviously Fitz declines because Tom Badgerlock should not have the sword. But he's definitely visibly moved. And I think Dutiful says, "When I take your father's sword from you, I will return my father's sword to you." I don't know. I think this was the start of, for me, seeing Dutiful in another light, and I just love the progression through the story and just how much it meant. Like, it continues to mean for Dutiful to have a family member around, and especially to just be grasping at any memories of his father that Fitz can give him. And I don't know if you guys visibly remember that scene, but that kind of was the first of many times I got a little emotional.
I think it's borderline criminal how little Fitz has done to relay tales of his father.
Of
Yeah,
Verity to
Yeah.
Dutiful.
he's not without stories to tell.
Yep.
Yeah, of course. And just how much Fitz looked up to Verity in that first
Right.
trilogy as the only one of the few people showing him kindness.
Like all he knows is from his mother and from like Patience. But there are many moments that only Fitz and Verity shared,
Yeah,
and Dutiful deserves some of those.
a different type of relationship too that he can pull on.
Yep.
The last, we'll do chapter 4 and 5. Really, the last. This is all them getting ready before they go on the trip. Fitz, if you remember, runs into what's the woman's name who he used to sleep with?
Starling.
Starling. Yep. And she's
I was
depressed
thinking
because
Jinnah.
yeah, they could have get them all mixed up. She's all depressed because she thinks her husband's cheating on her because he now wants children. He runs into Swift again, is angry because he's angry also because he didn't tell anyone where he was going, and Nettle's all pissed at Fitz because of it. So he tells him, "Go home, and I don't want to see you again." And and that Dutiful's bringing a witted coterie to the trip. We got Webb, Civil, and the minstrel Cockle. Yeah, nice crew. And essentially, they get on the ship, and what do you know? He sees Lord Golden being denied. Golden sees Fitz and realizes the deception. And I mean, we're off to the races of awkwardness again between Fitz and Fool at that moment.
I don't think he realized the deception until he was well out of sight.
You don't think so? I always got the sense.
No.
I always got the sense that he's like, "Come on, dude! You see me here, not getting let on, and you're about to leave."
I almost feel like he knew he wasn't gonna get on, but wanted to make Fitz feel bad, just like
They talk about it
make a
later
show
on in
about
the
it.
book, and that's not the impression I got.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll allow it. Yeah, you might be right. I could be misremembering.
The fool says that they thought that Fitz went to the castle to talk to the queen to get them released and to fix it all.
Oh, really? Oh, I missed
Yeah.
that. Oh, you're right then. Look at that. The fool always believe in the best in Fitz.
Yep. And then just had to wait and wait and come to the slow realization that no, Fitz wasn't coming.
We should say all this time, if you guys want to talk a little bit about Nettle and Fitz have been they've been dream communicate skilling all throughout these chapters. I mean, there's a lot of this throughout this book of how they communicate with each other. A lot of it's about Swift, running away again, going on this journey. Fitz just blindly saying, "Don't worry, I sent him home. He'll be there soon." And of course, Swift doesn't come back soon, so Nettle gets angry at Fitz. But did you, for me, this is like one of my favorite relationships of the book, and I forgot that most of it takes place through skilling and seeing just how adept Nettle is at skilling in general without any training.
Yeah. We also is this
She
we
doesn't
also
even
get
view it
her.
so.
What'd you say?
She doesn't even view it as skilling,
No.
as
Right.
magic. She's just dreaming.
Like dream
Yeah.
manipulation. That definitely seems like her specialty, like dream related
Yep.
fixing and manipulation.
And I love the epigraphs of this book. I absolutely love the
Mhm.
epigraphs of this book, which have some like selections from historical essays and skill scrolls, and specifically the ones relating to Nettle about skill dreamers and solos.
These might be my favorite epigraphs of any Hobb because it was so varied too. I mean, some of them would just be like old letters from like Patience to or Ketrigan to Molly and things like that. It
Yep.
was just depending what the chapter was about or history of the Islanders right before a chapter that dovetails into it. So I didn't recap any of them because I'm too lazy, but they were awesome.
And fairly lengthy.
Yeah. Well, hey, it's a chunky book. This one
Yeah.
was. Hey, so I wrote so real quick. I noticed in the Farseer, I'm not gonna have much to add to this. You guys might not either. But Out Islanders and Out Island is one word. It's all like there's no space. But in this one, Out Island and Out Islanders, there's a space between them. That has to be purposeful, right? I don't know. I'm not smart enough to understand why, but from Farseer to Tawny, that's
I don't know.
different.
What's that phenomenon where like people remember things differently?
Mandela effect.
Yeah, that's the realm of the Elderlings Mandela effect, I guess.
There you go.
In world Mandela effect.
All right, so get into chapter 6 and 7. I think the biggest aspect of these chapters is they get on the ship, and this really does take a portion of this book, is that Thick is just
So much.
incredibly averse to being on a ship and being seasick. And what I thought was really cool and interesting, and for some reason I didn't put it together, is that the skill affects everyone on the ship negatively because his feelings are that powerful that it's making everyone uncomfortable.
Canonically, Thick has never been able to shut up in the skill.
Yeah, and that's the thing. He can't control it, so it's just outwardly going out to everyone. And I don't know. I thought I'd get annoyed by it, but I loved every second of his misery. Just
Wow.
not loved it for him, but I just found it wildly interesting. One, because how the skill works. Two, Fitz's reaction to it wasn't always the best. I mean, he really was impatient with Thick a lot of the time, and I honestly thought a lot of the time it reflected poorly on Fitz, the way he handled Thick a lot of times. Sometimes even trying to get physical and just grab him, throw him on a ship.
Oh, sure.
And then contrasting that to people like Webb, who can calmly use the wit, and Fitz didn't know to calm Thick.
I mean, I think that was pretty blatant. But I do think that it's a classic Hobb choice to have the realities of a significant impairment last the whole book.
I don't know. I thought it was cool how, and also weird how Webb was surprised that Fitz didn't know you could do that with the wit. Like,
yeah,
to Fitz, he only thought you could repel things.
I mean, if I was Webb, I would not be surprised at the things that Fitz didn't know.
Well, he doesn't know Fitz like we do, I don't think.
Yeah, true.
But I don't know. I thought that was...
It was interesting.
Yeah, and eventually, just to goes to show again how Webb's awesomeness by taking care of Thick and easing him into that. And then we find out that, and another way for Nettle to bond with Fitz, where Fitz asks her to kind of help him and soothe him through the skill. I think they say Nettle sees him as like a little kitten in the skill. And like kind of soothes him to sleep and helps. And clearly Thick and Nettle start having a bond after through that.
And she makes a dream environment for him that's like the one that he has forever lost growing up.
Mm.
inside
I
the
really like her
caravan.
helping.
Right.
She takes his mother song and constructs a visual place for him to live inside of it.
It's very skillful.
Yeah.
Pun intended.
It's crazy that
And who's that guard that's who takes care of Thick as well?
Riddle.
Riddle,
Mm.
right? Yeah.
I don't even remember him too much, but like from before, but he was like a big part of this, always like chiming in and helping out Fitz every once in a while.
Riddle
Right.
was better at taking care of Thick than Fitz was.
Yes. Everyone was.
Not everyone. A lot of those guardsmen were,
Oh yeah,
by most accounts, terrible people.
I wouldn't
Yeah,
say
they
they
were
were
all just like,
taking.
shut this kid up.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they were taking care of him. They were just wanting to kill him.
Yeah.
And like so, the last important thing in this chapter was so Nettle's all pissed off about Fitz lying to her about what's his face Swift not coming home. So what Fitz does is tell her a message to give to Burrick, which was a pretty big thing for her. And essentially that message would alert Burrick that he is alive, and Fitz realizes this but does it anyway to kind of win her trust over again. And for me, that was like,
what words did you have me say?
you know. And then she just got angry again because Burrick got so emotional and left straight for Buckkeep. So
This was a very stressful. Well, I mean, reading it, I was like, wow, I'm really stressed for Fitz because there's just so many issues that he has to deal with, and the journey just started. You know, he's trying to calm Thick down while dealing with the fact that Thick is agitating the whole journey through his skilling. And then, you know, he discovers Swift making it on board after telling Nettle that he'd be home soon. And then, like, Birch and Molly will continue to be sad after that. You know, he has to, like, confront that reality. And then, like, yeah, it's a lot. But he does have some help, like we mentioned. I like how Webb made. Sorry, I'm kind of pivoting to Swift here, but
sure.
I really liked how Webb kind of made me realize that Swift leaving his family paralleled what Fitz did to like those around him. You know.
Yes.
I mean, that was the point that Webb was trying to make. It's like, you know, he's Swift is neglecting the feelings of his family and, you know,
Yep.
like ignoring their emotional health to do whatever he wants, just like Fitz does.
In a broad
Sure.
sense, he's right. I mean, it's
But
definitely
Fitz
not.
is older.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Fitz is
differences.
an adult, and he can screw up his own life if he wants to.
Yeah. I think Webb just likes to take any chance he can to instill a lesson on Fitz.
I'm taking Fitz's side here.
But also he takes a chance always just to remind Fitz like kind of the wrong paths he's continuously chosen or delayed or choices, you know, which I feel like Fitz, if no one else is really telling him that, you know. And so Webb's just always sneaking up into the side like, you know, who else hurts people's feelings by telling them they're not around, you know. Like he always kind of has to give them a friendly reminder that like you effed up a lot too.
He's like, no one can actually make time, right? You just gotta pick your priorities.
So we'll do a general talk real quick. So these next chapters, I don't know about you guys, but this was probably the weakest part of the book for me. So this is when they get to the first stop of their destination. They meet like what's called the Het Guard, other islanders who's going to be traveling with them, and they kind of set up a camp and
they have a dinner.
They have that.
Sure, the weakest part of the book. Yeah. Also, one of the funniest.
Oh,
yeah.
Which one do you because of the way he?
Yes,
I like the way Fitz wanted to make everyone go pee. Was the? Is that what you're talking about or no?
Yep.
When that meeting's going long and there's like real no leadership, everyone's just bickering. He's like, "Well, what if I use the skill to make us all have to run to the bathroom
instead of puking? What if peeing?"
I mean, generally pretty smart. I mean, I gotta give it to him.
Shade was not happy though because again he tried to show independent political will.
as
It was
always.
it was perhaps the weakest part of the book, but I liked how, this is our first true exposure to the Narcheska. I mean, we get a bit in Golden Fool, but she's more in her element here. There's more of there's characters actually talking to her, instead of like Fitz spying on her, for example.
Mm.
And then another funny bit is like her getting into the fight with the other girl that was like trying to hit on Dutiful, and
Oh yeah, the
she like
Sackville
shoves
Baggins.
yeah she like shoves dirt in her mouth or something.
Yeah, that was it was a little bit after, but I mean, it's all on the same thing.
Little bit
So they go to this island, and then they have to get back on a ship again to go meet the Narcheska and all the women who are in charge.
Oh right, okay, yeah.
I like the only part of the middle that was interesting is that's when we find like Webb used Swift as a test to see if he could get Thick back on the ship again, because that was when like Fitz tried to wrestle him on there. Like it was just totally like he looked like a mess trying to get him on there, and then Swift just walks him out.
Yeah, it was at this point that I was like, all right, Thick is not doing a boat trip back to the Six Duchies, so
I
he's
know.
either getting back in some other way or he's not getting back at all. I was a little worried.
But yeah, I did when you were talking about Sean. I actually really like that part when they meet all the Narcheska and like the little group of girls who kind of dog on her, and they get in that like little wrestling match. I think it was a nice little moment between Dutiful and her where you finally see start to blossom, even though if she's
Right.
just like kiss me now because I'm not getting outshone up by these women. But it's also interesting. Do you remember when they meet like the all grandmother, and she thinks
Yes,
she doesn't even know who Dutiful is? She's like, "What's this dude doing here?"
that was sad.
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
Well, because there was this woman with dementia who was being forced into a political situation that she like needed to fill via tradition,
Yeah.
but was incapable of doing so.
Mm-hmm.
And then just everyone trying to pretend that that was fine.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's very awkward.
That was sad.
It was an interesting look into their politics, though. That this is, like what if they're missing the real Narcheska that this woman just has to fill in who's not ready.
I was surprised they asked so few questions.
They're trying to be polite, and
The Out Islanders were asking so many questions. Why did these Six Duchies people feel the need to be so circumspect?
this was the part. I don't know if you guys remember this. So during that whole section, Swift, one of the times Swift, Webb, and Fitz are talking, Swift tries to bond with a robber rat, and like Webb gets like real curt with him, and like
That's a
probably,
raccoon, right?
yeah, that's what I assumed.
Yeah.
I don't know, robber rat. I think it makes sense, but it was kind of jarring to see how much Webb snapped and said like that's what the piebolds do. We don't do that in
Yeah.
old blood, and like kind of got serious. And I'm just like, this dude's a great teacher. I mean, he just knows when to flip the switch. He knows when to get serious. And yeah, that was good. Only other stuff I really noted down. This is when Dutiful and Alania went on a date and like horseback riding or something, and Fitz sees Henja spying on them, and he like throws a stick or something over there so he can go run into the bushes. But she's gone. She runs away, obviously.
Yep.
And yeah, that's pretty much again. This stuff was just like hanging out with before the big trip, and I felt.
I agree. Definitely not the strongest part of the book.
But it did. Oh, and when we did miss where Dutiful and Alania have a talk, like they sneak out with each other to talk about having sex and stuff, and Fitz is like eavesdropping on him.
Yeah, they seem to be talking a lot about loopholes.
Yeah, can we do this but not this? I mean, it's realistic. They're young teenagers who.
Yeah, sure.
20s, I get it. Before that, the reason Fitz went over there is because Nettle had a dream skill with Fitz, and Tintaglia pops in, and Nettle just tosses the dragon out like it's nothing, which is incredible. And then Dutiful pops in and says, "What's going on here?" and gets like furious at Fitz for keeping a secret. And I think this is when Dutiful learns he has a cousin in Nettle.
Yep.
Did you guys have it? My biggest thought on that was, I'll let you guys riff, was I thought it was really powerful. Dutiful was saying, like, do you know how much help it would have been to know I had a family member my age at court, another Farseer, and you just, Fitz chose not to indulge that information on Nettle's behalf and on his. And I thought that was kind of a moving speech he gave on that topic.
I mean, more than one person had that information.
They did call her to Buckkeep, so
Yeah, too late for him though. He was like,
yeah.
I had such a lonely childhood. Everyone wanted to get close to me and use me for my power and privilege and position.
That's what they would have done with Nettle. He should understand.
He's like, no, I needed a girl who would insult me to my face.
But at least he'd have that other person to lean on that both were, people were trying to both influence them. They could be like, oh, these guys, I can't trust anyone around here.
This girl's life should have been like mine.
Right, like that's how it comes across. I do feel for him though, because he did have no one, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's why he leaned on Civil so much, because there was someone else he could like confide in, but he's not family, and this would have been a way. And it was just funny in that conversation. Shade was like, I tried to tell him. He's like, every time, and he's like, I don't want to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
We will get to the chapter titled Civil.
Oh man, Fitz drugs Thick to get him on the ship to Zylig, which is where the dragon is, or somewhere. Dutiful demands answers. Trade Nettle. Thick continues to make everyone miserable.
And Thick is just like losing so much weight.
Oh yeah, he's like getting gaunt.
Yep.
She did describe that stuff really well, like talking about Thick and his hatred of going on there. And also, like, Thick would like purposely make Fitz trip into walls and stuff because he was just getting angry at him.
Hilarious and scary.
With the skill. Yeah, definitely. But essentially, they finally get to their destination. And at the end of the chapter, cool image, they see a shadowed figure standing at the edge of the shoreline. And it is the Fool.
The Fool awaited me.
I don't know. What was your first, when you saw that, what was your first thought of like, how did he get here?
Flown on Dragonback.
Yeah, that was my first thought.
Oh, damn.
I was like,
guessed it right away. I was like, I don't know. Did he magically do something? I don't know. Didn't make sense.
And then I was like, why isn't the dragon still there then?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was thinking that too this reread. I'm like, where'd he park it?
Got valid.
Yeah.
Now that they're there, Fitz is essentially trying to avoid, or no, Jade is trying to keep Fitz away from the Fool because he doesn't want there to be drama, I guess.
That nasty corrupting fool.
Yeah. Jade trying to keep it on his side. Fitz starts scouting the area. It's funny, one of the Islanders says it's not the dragon they seek, but one of the Pale Woman's follies. And Piotr shuts him up, which obviously is foreshadowing. The Pale Woman making stone dragons.
Piotr.
I do like how we just like slowly get confirmed that the Pale Woman was behind all of the Red Ship's drama.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the forging. That just like slowly gets confirmed over the course of this book. Like we knew it before, but
it's wild to think about that it was, a Fool counterpart that caused so much devastation in the Six Duchies. And it's like, wow.
And not just a counterpart, but a celebrated counterpart.
Mm-hmm.
That like the Fool's bright yet evil reflection is at work in the world and causing so much harm.
Yeah, and like she affects a whole lot. It's pretty daunting.
It's cool world building too. I mean, it makes the world seem a little bigger. I wasn't sure my first read through. I wasn't sure. I'm like, they're just going to introduce this like big villain at the end of this book, and like,
right?
And you're halfway through it and it still hasn't shown up. I'm like, I think this is like something's not right here. She obviously pulls it off, but that kind of worried me throughout. Where I'm like, I just don't care about this Pale Woman at this point in the story. I'm like, I never met him, and even Kevril Ralbreck, you just kind of hear about him.
Yeah, never say that Hobb can't do a lot of fast characterization when she wants to.
So at this point, Thick is kind of communicating to Nettle for Fitz because she is angry at Fitz, as most people do get. And she's saying that Burke left off for a journey, and she's angry about that, and she's adjusting to life at court, which she hates. And back at the camp, Fitz goes into the fool's tent when he's not there to steal some honey for Thick and leaves him a little. I think he says he moves something so he knows, but not really a note or anything. And eventually, arguments are had about the Outlanders if they should actually kill the dragon. They're kind of saying most of them don't actually want to do it. I think the Narcheska's clan is like wrong, but they're like, hey, if you guys do this is on you. We're saying. And we learn how Fool got there. Fitz finally asks him, and Fool said, "I flew." It was a nice short answer and passive aggressive. Love it.
Which life of Nettles would you rather have? Would you rather live out in the countryside with your family? Or would you rather live in Buckkeep, alone, isolated, and having to learn super quickly about what it means to be a noble lady?
I would love to live in Buckkeep.
Would you? Everyone in Bingtown seemed to not be a fan.
Yeah, but they're stuck up.
Yeah. And I hate the country. I can't. I need close walking to like grocery marts and stuff. I can't be making my own food.
Yeah, but you get your mom's honey.
That's true. And she has a lot of brothers. I mean,
Yeah.
they went to work. I don't know. I only a family of 3 siblings. I can't what do they have, 7?
Something like that.
Yeah,
That many? Really?
There was a lot. I mean, they kept naming sons from Burke. I'm like, man.
It helps when you have twins.
That's true. Yeah, it's a tough decision. I mean, I don't know. Growing up in court with other people, snotty-nosed rich people, I wouldn't fit in well with that either.
Real quick, despite like a lot of the drama with the Fool and like Nettle and like the quest for the dragon looming, I think at this point I was like most worried about Thick's cough. I was like,
yeah.
my guy's got like bronchitis or something. No
Yep.
antibiotics. He's cold. He's worn out. Not eating well. I was really worried for Thick for a lot of this book.
I was like, when are they going to heal him?
Yeah.
When are they going to
Please.
heal him? He's got reserves. He won't for much longer, though.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point. Yeah. Why didn't they use the skill to like whip him into shape?
Do a vestibular fix while you're at it.
I thought it was interesting how throughout this journey, like Thick, just how he was treated. Like the Outlanders are like disgusted by him. Like generally, I don't know if she's trying to
Yeah.
make a statement, but like even
she
when
was.
when they were making a camp, yeah, like him and Fitz had to be away from the camp. They had their own separate little thing. The Outlanders set up for them, and I think it was making a statement just how much they thought he was a hindrance. Just disgusted in general with him, and that just, I mean, it takes a turn at the end of the book when he does something, but I think that was really highlighted throughout. And I think she was trying to say something with ableism, but I wasn't totally smart enough to parse it out.
There's definitely a lot of conversation about disability happening around Thick.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times right in front of him.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. Okay. So let's get to this chapter. So we're about around at chapter 15, and Fitz goes to see the Fool, and he kind of walks in on Swift and the talking. And Swift at this point has become very fond of the Fool, likes the Fool's stories, and is just sitting around. And Fitz doesn't know how to excuse himself, so he feels awkward.
Fitz third wheeling was hilarious.
I know, that was funny. He's just like, I don't know how to get out of it. He kind of just takes a squat, and like Swift is all pissed off, like he just walked in on. But it was kind of cool. Fool talks about how he just straight up opposes Dutiful's mission, which kind of tore Swift a little bit.
Yep.
Torn between that and like the witted sense he has with animals. And he says how Icefire and Tintaglia must have children. And, Fool's telling stories, and guess who just barges right in? You guessed it. Silver Brasinga.
Hilariously.
And of course, Civil's like, oh boy, there's this young kid in here with freaking groomer. I knew it. And he like gets all huffy and puffy with him. And they take it outside. He accuses the fool of ruining his life, what future marriage, his whole family, and just pretty much blames everything on the fool. And they start getting into fisticuffs right then and there.
And the fool beats him up bad.
Oh yeah, he's definitely taken some UFC lessons. I mean, he grappled him real well. He's like putting his face in the dirt. He's like, "Are we over yet? Is this good?" And Dutiful's just like, "Hey, finish it." He's like, "Is this done, Civil? You all good?" And it was. I love that scene. Just kind of, it was actually kind of sad to see Civil just kind of like almost ranting about and crying, and Fool was just straight up with him, like, "Listen, what I did to you was just because we were on a mission to save Dutiful." He said, "I did what I did, not because of any attraction to you, but because we needed to make a quick exit. You can live with that or you can't. It's not my problem anymore." And he just told him it's over. And I thought that was, I don't know, it was a mature conversation while someone's pinning another man to the ground that was really interesting.
I also feel for Civil in this moment because also, like, didn't his mother commit suicide?
Yeah, I mean, he was blaming Fool for that. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Like, it was not the fool's fault that his mother committed suicide. It was the fact that piebalds were involved in that whole situation. But like, if your mother is assaulted repeatedly in a way so that she ends up taking her own life, how are you as a like teenager going to react to that? Probably not great, right?
Sure. And it's all been pent up. I mean, it's all been resentment just building and building. It's never been fully addressed, and it just really literally came to blows. So that was a impactful scene. And that's just one of the ones, like, when you read books, there's moments in books, whatever, that stick with you in sequences. And that one always has, for whatever reason, even though, I don't know, is it the 12th most important scene in this book? Maybe.
I felt like it was almost a comic relief scene.
At points, when he barges in, definitely.
Yeah. Because Swift is like, "I will never be disloyal to my king." And Civil's like, "What?"
Yeah, right. The way he worded it, yeah.
I found the importance in that scene, like, in more so the aftermath of the fight.
Yep.
Where the fool declares himself the White Prophet. It's like, Fitz is my catalyst. We're gonna change the world. We have this mission to do. And then Piotr, as I guess I'll call him now. I really know headcanon for the pronunciation.
Please don't call him Piotr.
I'll go with Piotr.
Please don't.
Piotr shudders after hearing the fool declare himself the White Prophet, which I thought was a good moment because it's like, obviously, well, he's most likely recounting.
They've been here before.
Exactly. They're like, "Oh God, not again. Last time this happened, started a war and we lost, and like the world is forever changed for the worse, and there's still all these ramifications that we're dealing with, and this and that." So, like, I can only imagine how like awful he must have felt in that moment, thinking that this is just another zealot, another crazy white prophet person that's gonna tear the world down with them.
Maybe kidnap another generation of their mothers.
Yeah.
That's so funny. I didn't even put that together. You're right. Piotr's probably like, "Oh my God, are you effing kidding me?"
Why am I here?
Also, just like I was thinking that scene, like, can you imagine just being like, I don't know, some rando in that group and proclaiming to be a white prophet and this is my change. And this guy's like, "What? I thought we were just hunting a dragon." What's going on here? Prophet.
My changer.
Yeah. Or the catalyst and stuff like that. So yeah, that was good. But I thought you were going, what was also really important about the end of that scene is when Fitz goes and tends to the fool in the tent and like kind of heals him up. And, they really have
Talk about changing.
Yeah. I thought it was really good about fate, and where Fitz just says, like, "Listen, I'm not going to let you die." I was like, you're here, like, I'm not doing that. And then the fool asks him to stay the night, I should say, at the tent. And I think that's when they fall asleep holding hands. Which, listen, I have friends who I've known a lot of friends in high school I still talk to. Good group of them. I've never fallen asleep with.
I think I fell asleep in the same bed as like 7 of my friends one time. So like, whatever.
Oh, I
I can't
slept in.
say
Oh,
I
me
would
too.
ever hold hands with a friend as I fall asleep though, but
Yeah,
it's crazy that Hobb like made that believable and like it doesn't have to be romantic. Even like one could read it that way and like fine, but like one could also read it as not romantic, completely platonic, like
yeah.
deep love friendship thing, and it's impressive that she can kind of get that across.
I just think I agree. I just feel like sorry. I've read a lot of Reddit posts about the end of this book and everyone's opinions on the Fitz and the Fool, and I feel like you could make an argument anyway of the attraction, but mutual attraction, I would say, between both of them. And I don't know who's right at this point, but I'm just pinpointing things like this that is an intimate gesture, which is
Look,
fine. It's fine.
they're one soul. How much more intimate
Yeah.
can you get than that?
No, I don't know.
Right.
You can't. You can't.
Yeah, a relationship between a catalyst and a white prophet is
Well,
enigmatic.
I mean, in the epigraphs, we see how some of them have gone in the past, and they did not always seem the happiest thing.
Not happy, but still close.
The White
Eh.
Prophet and the Catalyst.
Yeah.
I think one of the epigraphs, didn't they like note that usually the White Prophet and the Catalyst are opposite genders?
I think they did note that, I think. But they
Definitely comes
also
up with a pale woman, but
they also noted that like the White Prophet really can't do all that much with the Catalyst. Like I think they said something along the lines of like the Catalyst will change things, and the Prophet may think they know the direction things need to go, but then they gave a whole bunch of examples of how like no, sometimes the White Prophet is just actively contradicting their Catalyst's need to change things. Like the more they think they're in control, the less they're getting done. Especially the more forcefully they're in control.
Is they're not the one that should be doing the changing. So if they're that much in control,
Yeah.
they're taking the changer role, which is going to be ineffective
Yep.
right. Yeah, right.
because that's not their job.
Like which chapter was it that had the story of the catalyst who like to sneak out and go get fruit to eat? Like to go berry picking,
What a pull!
and that and then it
I know.
and then it ended up that their like trips over to get the berries were actually bringing back like the nettles and thorns and seeds on their clothing that were then rebuilding the dust bowl that the White Prophet was living in and like resetting up the ecosystem and starting production again in that area that the rains had abandoned.
I retain like 5% of these epigraphs, so you're just I'm out of my leagues here. I literally don't remember that one.
And that was supposedly one of the most famed White Prophets as well. It was like Joaquin.
Okay.
Hmm.
Let's move on. Let's go chapter 16 and 17. They go and walk, and one interesting part as they're traveling is that Thick and Fitz start like being really nasty to each other. Thick starts like calling him, bad names, blaming him, and Fitz calls him like a really derogatory name in regards, I forget what it is. And they kind of pause and they're like, someone is definitely influencing us with the skill. And they both realize it and apologize, but kind of worries Fitz. And, he tells Chade and them just to be careful because there's someone out there messing with them. But this is where they're all eating inside. They all kind of talk with each other. And what is his name? Piotr comes in and offers them some like raisin bran cake or something like that. And Fitz has a bite and unfortunately realizes it's laced with a disgusting amount of elf bark and warns them right before he loses his skill. And so they all politely decline, even though Thick is all pissed off. He's like, what? I'm starving.
Yeah.
And Dutiful has to like calm him down and get him something else. But it's too late. He's like pulling his hair and his lips and he goes
Try
to
to vomit.
yeah.
Yeah, he did.
Okay, to make sure.
Yeah.
He's still got those old skills. I'm surprised we didn't get mention of a purgative.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't. So I remember we were talking and this happened. I totally forgot this happened. And I think Sean was the same way. You're like, oh yeah, Fitz loses his skill. for a portion of this book.
I might have said that, but it's very fresh in my mind. Like after I
Right.
was reminded, like I'm like it's a big part for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I also wanted to talk about this. So he's like, he's going kind of crazy, but also Chade is like, when Fitz eats Elf Bark, he gets like suicidal, and
Yeah.
he really does. He's like talking about like
Well, they gave him so much.
must have been an incredible amount for us to do that. Oh, I had a note in here that I was like,
And then Thick sets web on him.
hey, thank God. You kind of walked him off the cliff in that sense.
All the while, Fitz is like, I never talk about suicide. I thought about it like once. People blow it out of proportion. That's not me.
Right. I tried to compare. Did you guys like note the parallels of like just suicidal thoughts written by Hobb? So you have Fitz here. I mean, Paragon is a huge one. And there's someone else I had too. Oh, this is later. Icefire too. But we can talk about later.
Someone else later too.
It all seems similar to me. Like I couldn't stop thinking about Paragon.
I'm just reminded that you said that this book has no pain. It's not just all pain, and there's like what 4 suicidal people minimum in this book.
Specifically the ending. We'll get there. There's definitely pain throughout. Yeah. So from here on out, Fitz just ain't got the skill. He's got to rely totally on his wit at this point.
Elf Bark's supposed to be like amphetamines, I guess, right? Like similar effects.
Similar-ish, I guess.
I just thought it was magical, the dulling of the wit or the skill. So yeah, you said it. Webb starts treating him and tells him to lean on his wit magic, essentially. Community around that, and then they both feel this large presence, and everybody goes and runs and kind of susses out where Icefire is in the ice because they can just feel this large alive presence, and they're like, "Oh damn!" Like, wow, this thing is actually a living, breathing beast. And not only that, but Thick seems to be in like this haze from the dragon.
Yeah, the dragon's like phasing in and out of the wit and skill.
Well, they say dragons do that, right? They like infatuate people, but this is almost on like a unconscious sense of infatuation where he can't even function because he's so infatuated.
I mean, like that's all the dragon can do at this point, so I could see it being amplified.
Right.
The dragon makes music. Thick is unable to stop music. The two combined in a bad way.
Mm-hmm.
The coterie worries how they're going to communicate back to Buckkeep with Nettle because they have no really path for that now that what's his face? Fitz has no skill. Thick is incapacitated. And but yeah, this is also when Fitz learns that the fool used skill pillars and Girl and a Dragon to arrive. And then Fitz falls asleep during the tell and wakes
It's
up.
like, how could you use a skill pillar?
Oh yeah, so he used it because of his finger, right?
Yeah, but he's like, don't you know they're dangerous? Can't believe you would do such a thing.
Oh yeah, I know. Hold on to that thought. Fitz not listening to his own advice. Who would have thought? Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was interesting when they referenced how much of Fitz's pain is in it. I think the Fool says, which is a big foreshadow.
Yeah, we get a nice little reminder of like specifically the memories that Fitz is lacking.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Which I got to go back before our second episode and listen to the first one we did on this because I remember like saying something to Kip is like, hey, do you specifically remember what happens at the end of Quest? And I even messaged Sean because Sean's like, wait, what happened?
I remember
that. I forget what you brought up in that sense, but it directly had something to do with Girl and a Dragon and what happens at the end. I've never listened to it before. We'll have to go back and look. But anyway, just reminded me of that. All right. So essentially now we're just at the point of doing excavation work, trying to get through to Icefire because he's like lodged into the ice underneath them.
Pretty much.
Everyone, it was kind of like a nice happy moment. Everyone in Dutiful, Alania, Piotr, the whole Witted crew, the Fool, and then Dutiful reaching Nettle, therefore regretting not involving Nettle earlier. Lessons with Webb continue. Oh, all right. So this is when Chade orders Fitz to go find the 2 missing crew members that just have disappeared, and to get some more supplies. Fitz decides to take the Fool and Thick, and essentially goes pretty well until they fall into a glacier.
Yeah, so when they walk, Fitz makes it a point to, you know, Thick should follow his footsteps, which I don't know, it was kind of cool in my opinion. Like common sense, relatively, but
Yeah.
it was just kind of a nice little moment for them walking.
You reminded me about Thick and Fitz, when they were like realized they were being saying mean things to each other. I remember there was one scene where essentially Thick apologizes to Tom for like tripping him on the boat and stuff and being mean to him, and then just, I love you, Tom. It was like it grabbed my heart, and I was like, oh, this is, and like Fitz was kind of really taken aback by that, and it's just small moments like that she can just slip in there that don't feel kind of cheesy or unearned.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, by this point, how many pages have we spent on Fitz taking care of Thick?
Definitely, yeah. That
lot.
stuff added up, and just
Yeah.
for that moment, you're right. I mean, that's why she does things like that, where it's like, oh, this pays off. Secretly he does appreciate what Fitz does to him, even though it didn't, seem it throughout the whole thing. So yeah, this is when I would say this point right here, when Fitz and Fool plop down into this ice cavern dungeon. From here on out, we're hitting bread and butter, baby. I mean, this story is just like, this is like when it goes from all time stuff, and really just does not stop. And Sean talking about being on edge at some points, like I was on edge quite a bit from my emotions were all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
The second they dropped into that ice cavern, I was terrified, and it didn't stop for a while.
Yeah.
It's like, I just felt like I was a fool at that point, where the Fool was like, all right, end game's here for me. And I was thinking, yep, end game is definitely coming for you. Like,
Yeah.
But the first place they find is these jail cells, which was interesting. And they find the 2 prisoners or the 2 people they lost as prisoners. And essentially most of the people are dead or forged. And kind of an interesting convo where the Fool's like pleading with Fitz to save them. Like, let's let them out and try to save them. And Fitz is like, bro, they're just going to kill one of us. I mean, it's a waste. There's no point. They're forged. Like, we've been through this. Fitz has like major PTSD. Forged people. Like, nah.
Fitz is like, I learned these lessons long ago.
Yeah, haven't you read Farseer?
Yep.
But that was kind of, even just, it was the way she described those sections too. Just the jail cells and the filth and disgust. It was just kind of a weird, somber, like gross thing.
I don't think Fitz published his Farseer book yet, for the record, in World.
I mean, I don't know. I saw these dungeon rooms, and I was like, so we're going to see these again soon, right? With our protagonist inside of them.
You can't just leave that hanging. Yeah, so it says it's pointless. They eventually find where Blackfire is. They kind of have an angle iced up right there. And then eventually they notice the black, and they're like, oh man, this dude's following us. Let's go give him a chase. And they chase him down. And eventually they'll just run into a bunch of people who capture them and knock them out. And that is the start of, it was funny. So they get captured like right before Fitz gets knocked out. I remember I don't know if you remember the wording. It says he stabs someone through a wolf fur vest, and I was like, that has to be intentional. They're making him stab a wolf. I don't know. Again, trying to read into the text a little bit, but it could have been a bear skin. It could have been a deer skin, and they pick a wolf skin vest that the bad guy was wearing that he had to shove a sword in. I don't know.
I don't know. I wonder there.
Yeah. Hey, I don't put anything past Hobb. So this next chapter, chapter 21, this is the last one we're going to discuss, right?
Yeah.
So let's just start out with this. What are your thoughts, Skip, when you first read this chapter, thoughts on the Pale Woman? We finally meet her. She gives this monologue, James Bond-esque villain monologue to Fitz. What were your thoughts when we finally meet this, the Fool's arch nemesis?
She was everything I feared she was going to be. She was
Reasonable.
cold, calculating, always having the fool under lock and key.
Mm.
Delighting in causing pain and suffering, and devious in her methods of how to achieve such.
What about you, Sean? Anything you distinctly remember when you first met the pale woman? Go to her bed?
Mm, I don't remember specifics regarding the conversation, unfortunately, but apparently I wrote down that I saw the point in her words. Like her future that she explained doesn't seem too awful.
Mm.
Obviously I wouldn't agree with the methodology, but and I assumed Hobb would like convince me otherwise that her path isn't the correct one. And I'm rooting for the Fitz and the Fool regardless, but
Yeah.
yeah, like her methods are just so inhumane and
Right.
evil. She is, yeah, she's pretty scary.
Yeah. It was a great introduction. And there's a vivid scene I remember when she kind of brings, she separates both of them, but then brings in Fitz to her room, her seduce room, I say,
Oh yeah.
and forces him
Accurate.
to, forces him to like shave and shower. And then during this whole seducement kind of uses the name beloved against them, like kind of mocks the term, but that the name that they have for each other. And all this, while all this is happening, I mean, Fitz doesn't realize till the end, but I think it's either like a mirror or an angle where the fool, she's making them watch all of this as it's
The
happening.
fool is bound to the wall.
Yes. Yeah. Just totally
like mounted on the wall.
Yeah, just having to face this head on, and Fitz doesn't know it for the most part until the end. But I mean, you talked about cruel and inhumane.
Yep.
This girl, I was like, she is just like, that's how you introduce someone where I'm like, yeah, I hate her. I'm just not a fan. And like how she's saying, I think she traditionally white prophets and catalysts, man and girl, or man and woman, and you should probably join me, Fitz. You're the best changer. I'm the best I'm the real prophet. I mean,
And heterosexuality is right.
Right. I feel like that was so distinct that being put there. Yeah, it just kind of made my blood boil immediately with that. Also important to know, Fitz's skill starts coming back at this point, little by little. But yeah, just the cruelness and like Keble Rawbread she has chained up, and he's like an inhumane forged dude, just kind of
partially
bloodthirsty, partially forged. Like she has no to anyone. She kind of gives like what Sean was saying, spiel of how the world should work. This is when we find out where she's like, dragons should not be the head of the food chain in this world. Humans, we need to follow this path where humans are in control. We need to end them.
Yep.
I thought she was fantastic and just really just a piece of garbage.
She also kind of shows she means business by like putting the fool ever so slightly into the dragon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is like, I don't know, it's horrifying. Like the whole concept is horrifying. You don't know what parts of him are going in. He won't know what parts of him, well, they won't know what parts of them are going in because they have no recollection of what was lost. It's just like losing yourself is always kind of a crazy concept to think of, and watching this happen to a beloved character and just like not knowing how far it's going to go because this is very much the beginning. It is stressful.
And also because how Fitz like thinks being forged is worse than death. I mean, it's one of the worst things for him. So for that to happen to Fool, probably the person he loves most right now, yeah, you could tell she knew that going.
Yep.
Doing that. Can I ask you guys a question?
Sure.
So she's the white prophet, right? And prophets know their plan is going to go. I guess my question is, why was she trying to recruit Fitz to her side?
Because she wanted to take everything from the fool in front of him.
So it had nothing to do with like, it was mostly about the cruelty. It had nothing to do about the future of humanity, her trying, because it felt like her trying to change something where it's like that's not her job.
She would prevent the fool from changing anything with Fitz.
Right. But was that all?
It was about denial, because she doesn't actually want to change anything.
Right. She wants it to stay as it is.
Yep.
There's also the possible upside of actually winning Fitz over, but I don't know how believable she thought that was.
I agree.
Yeah, it just felt odd. Because like as a white prophet, why would you need to recruit someone onto your side if I don't know another changer? But
well, her catalyst she deemed was useless, broken.
Mm-hmm.
But did she know that going into it? Like prophets, don't they see these things? I guess she might have said it, but
she failed with her catalyst, and she wanted the appearance of trying again.
She knows what Fitz has done.
Yep. And she can probably see his potential, like the fool can.
Right.
She has that magical sense.
And I think it was said in the book by someone, but an interesting dynamic between her and the fool is she was not committed to her plan, whereas like the fool knew he was going to die, and he was like, hey, I have to die for dragons to survive. That's what has to happen. Whereas the pale woman would not sacrifice herself to be put into the stone dragon, even though if she would have done that, that would have had her. That's what she needed to sacrifice for dragons to be extinct, but she did not have. She wouldn't do it, And I think that was a nice distinction to why Fool obviously was the true white prophet.
She must be fairly short-sighted to not have wanted to do anything related to the live ship books, right? Like when it comes to bringing dragons back, that was the most substantial. Those were the most substantial events, the events of the live ship traders books, and she just let it happen.
I love this. I love this so much. So we're almost done. So can we pivot that point? What was the point of Amber in the live? What was the point what Fool was doing in live ship? Like for the big picture of the prophecy, because like you said, Pale Woman had nothing to do with it.
In my opinion, trying to find a new catalyst.
Ooh.
Obviously in Wintro.
Yep.
And
not.
Right. And like, so essentially you would think like, yeah, not working, but to have the serpents become the dragons, that would be the reason why they would continue. But as we know now, it's kind of, I'd say meaningless up to this point because Tintagli and Icefire meet.
I mean, didn't Amber like prevent Paragon from burning?
Right. In the beginning, instead of being sold off for.
Sure, no, but has Paragon had any like?
There was that portion in Ship of Destiny where there's like that trap door.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That like Amber discovers, right? It's not Althea, it's Amber.
Yep.
Yeah. So like, I mean,
which was weird because it wasn't something that Amber discovered; it was something that Amber made.
True, but like, however big or small, I think that Amber's presence within the events of Live Ship Traders was.
Oh sure.
Yeah, like. Maybe, most likely, the serpents don't make it down the river without her influence throughout the 3 books.
Oh, sure, definitely. I mean, that's definitely true. The serpents wouldn't. But I'm just saying they're kind of up to the point we read at this section of this book. Those serpents are irrelevant because Tintaglia and Icefire met. So it's like it kind of makes that whole like aspect moot.
But the like eruption of Tintaglia from the old city is something that happened in live ships.
Oh, that's right. There we go. But was she part of that? I guess.
No, she wasn't.
Malta. Well, Malta maybe.
Yeah. Maybe if you could argue that Amber had some effect on Malta, but I wouldn't make that argument.
Yeah. Well, I guess I guess it wasn't effect because Tintaglia had to go and say, they like as a favor, didn't she drop off Rain at the ships, like tossed him off his back during the big fight at the end? So
I forget.
And is one dragon couple enough to bring dragons back to the world?
Well, that's a big read and find out. For Kip, obviously, not for us.
Yeah.
But, anyway, all right. So at the end of this chapter, the Pale Woman just says to Fitz, like, yo, you need to go kill Icefire. If not, the fool's being tortured horribly, and I'm just going to murder this dude and put him into a dragon. So hurry up. And sends him back out into the ice. And I think that's where we're going to leave you guys, right? We'll call it here, the first part.
Now that we've finally met our villain.
dude.
Yep.
I mean, the second half is just going to be wild. I was just thinking. I mean, this is good stuff happened this first half, but man, 2-hour episode next time, definitely. There's no question. I mean, literally the first thing we're going to talk about next episode. One of my favorite parts in any Hobb book, so it'll be good.
I really did like the inclusion of like the whole mountaineering aspect and them like going over crevasses and snow and ice.
Right.
That was kind of fun.
That's why I brought up the footsteps thing. I don't know. It's just a nice little detail. That's like consistently important every time they're traveling over the snow.
I'm not doing a good service. I loved all that stuff. I mean, it's just all a lot of small moments.
Oh
Whereas
yeah.
like
Yeah.
the second half
Absolutely.
of the book is like payoff. It's like payoff after payoff after payoff after payoff. I did enjoy this stuff all the time, especially Thick. And if I had to pick one thing, my favorite thing was Thick and Fitz together.
Like, I mean, here's a line at the start of the book. I've never known you to wallow in emotion like this before. It almost seems that you are enjoying this. I tried not to sound disgusted with him. That's Fitz thinking and talking about someone else wallowing in emotion.
Is he thinking about dutiful?
No, that talking about the fool
Oh.
who's talking about their impending death
Gotcha.
and being dramatic about it. And the fool's like, yeah, there's a little bit of drama here. But like, come on, I think I'm taking it well.
I know, it's like, dude, he's dying. I mean, yeah. If we had any Discord questions, but I feel like most of them for like the back.
I don't think we got any.
We got at least one, but it was like very general. Yeah.
All right, let's end it there, boys. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you, thank you, Craig, for letting us do all this. Thank you for Horizon Brave setting up this whole shindig. Go and visit the Legendarium Discord, where you can all chat with us and argue about silly things and awesome recommendations. I'm pretty sure Aerodandus just literally bought a book for me, so I have to read whatever he just suggested. Very kind, very great place. And thank you to Jingle Punks. Kip, you can save me on this one again.
Our intro and outro music is Galactic Damages by the Jingle Punks.
There it is. Thank you so much. All right, guys. We'll see you later.
See ya.
Bye.